And also, I would like to let you know that there was already an onHeat training program starting last year that you can find all the recordings in our website, but the contents of that program will be different to the ones in this new season of the training program. So don't worry if you already attended to the previous one. And having said that, I would like to go through the agenda. I'm Velenje Municpality from ICLA Europe, and together with George Steve, my colleague, will be moderating this session. We will start with a short introduction to the topic. Then we will have Ali Aydemir from Fraunhofer ISI talking about the onHeat project and how it's supporting local authorities in this energy crisis. Then we will have Andrea Boyd from Danfoss talking about the importance of heating planning to overcome the crisis from a business perspective. And we will also have a municipal perspective with Istok Mori from the Velenje Municipality. And finally, we will have a discussion with all of our speakers and closing words. And of course, if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat during the presentations, and we will address them later in the discussion. So having said that, the topic of today is facing the energy emergency in Europe, as we are right now living an energy crisis that has been already building up for the past years. This doesn't happen suddenly. And as we can see, the energy prices have been skyrocketing in the past couple of years. And this situation is not expected to get any better if we keep relying on fossil fuels. And the causes for this energy prices rise are several, but we can name, for example, the rise in the global energy demand after the COVID-19 pandemic, a delay in the infrastructure maintenance also due to the pandemic. Of course, one of the major problems is Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and also the increased carbon price. So all of these factors and all of these energy prices make the energy poverty situation even worse. We can see that already in 2019, around 7% of the people in Europe couldn't keep their home adequately warm, and these figures are only getting worse now. And therefore, is the perfect time for heating planning now, because we have a very engaged society with a sense of urgency and solidarity, high awareness among citizens and stakeholders. And heating planning allows us to unlock the potential for switching to renewable energy sources, increase the energy efficiency, and also increase the energy performance in buildings. Another reason to switch to renewable energy sources and really work on heating planning is the new European CO2 tax on heating that we will be implemented soon. This will be applied on buildings and also on road transport fuels. So they would like to price the CO2 emissions starting in 2027 with a price ceiling of 45 euro per ton of emitted CO2, and which will apply until 2030. So having said that, I hope you got a very quick introduction to the topic. And I would like now give the floor to Ali Aydemir. He's a researcher in the Fraunhofer Institute for System and Innovation Research. He also is the coordinator of the onHeat project. So he will tell you a bit about the project and how we are supporting local authorities. So please, Ali, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Julian, thanks for the introduction. So I'm going to share my presentation right now. Okay, so it's working right now, so you can see the presentation, yes? Okay, fine. So the title of my presentation today is Facing the Energy Emergency in Europe, the Role of Heat Planning. So with a question mark, I will give you a brief overview on heating and cooling planning, and raise some thoughts and hope that this will initiate some kind of discussion, because yeah, it's quite interesting topic, as you all know. I brought some statistics slides with me, just to highlight the topic. I mean, you know, most of you probably that heating and cooling consumption is quite important with regard to the overall energy consumption. So as a rule of thumb, it's nearly half. Yeah, most of this is used for space heating in buildings. And if we go to the energy carrier statistics, so I also quoted the sources here. You can find very interesting figures also on your countries here. You have country fact sheets. You will see that in most countries, natural gas so far remains to be the dominant energy source, which caused right now problems, facing the Ukraine crisis. What we have seen, sorry for screenshotting German news, so I'm probably on a daily basis still reading more news in German when it comes to mainstream media. What I wanted to highlight here is also what Julien already quickly introduced, is that right now it seems so from our perception that the current energy crisis has created somehow awareness. Also, the heating issue is now in mainstream media. So the big elephant standing in the room, no one was talking about in past. Maybe that's not the situation right now. And here's the point where heat planning comes in. So basically, heat planning consists of, I would say, 4 steps. You can also find guidelines with 3 up to 5 steps, but basically it's all going in a similar direction. So what you are going to do within your municipalities, you are usually doing a status quo analysis. So with statistics and estimations, you are describing the heat demand. So how is heat provided within the community, which infrastructure and technologies are used. But what's also very important within the status quo analysis usually is to figure out what is the condition of buildings, the renovation status. So are they insulated? Is there room for improvement? Yeah. And after that, you go to the potential analysis. That's where you figure out how to change the energy carrier towards renewables, within your municipality. So usually you have to engage stakeholders here in probably most countries and municipalities among Europe. So it's not directly the municipalities managing the energy sources, but the utilities or supplier of energy carrier. So here you have already the first step where you have to involve stakeholders, and you start with some kind of potential analysis. As you do, for example, cost benefit analysis, etc. But what's also very important here, to figure out what are the potentials in order to reduce the energy demand among your buildings. Afterwards, you develop a set of scenarios. So there are different techniques to do this. You can do exploratory scenario development. So you just differentiate parameters and figure out what would be the outcome. But what is most common is that you define a target scenario. So you set some a goal for the greenhouse gas reduction and describe a pathway how you could achieve it technically, on a technical basis. And then the most important part is the fourth one. When you have your target scenario, you agreed on within the municipality, also engaging, for example, your mayor, you have to develop strategy and measures. So think about further additional policies on top of national or European policies which are already in place, how to push the decarbonization of heat. So you will have, for example, possibilities. Sometimes it depends really on regulation within countries. But here in Germany, for example, you have some possibility within special planning. So, for example, when there's when there are buildings to be built in new areas, so you can give some additional rules to the project developer, for example, with regard to energy standards. So on the left side, I talked about the steps. Right. The ago. Yeah. So and also talked about some questions we are facing among the steps. And on the left side, you see also some typical questions, and maybe some presentations which will follow will also take that up. For example, one very important topic is also to, if it comes to district heating, to find useful excess heat, within HeatNet, how to use it, and also to increase renovation rate. And as we are facing the energy crisis right now, so the question is, okay, so how is the connection between heating and planning and it's the energy crisis right now? So I would emphasize the stakeholder management right now, because right now you have the awareness, so you can create communication channels and get in touch with the relevant stakeholders. Here I brought a quick overview slide for you, is more or less for your information. So you can see that heating and planning is on the rise in Europe. So you have several countries already setting up rules. So Denmark has the longest history in heating and cooling planning with a very strong focus on district heating, and municipalities have really strong influence there. It's not the case in other countries up to now, as far as I know, but there are laws coming up. So in Germany, there will be municipal heating and cooling planning mandatory in several federal states, but also national law is expected. We have also regulation coming up in Netherlands, Swiss, and Austria. Furthermore, what's maybe also very important to note is that within the revision of the Energy Efficiency Directive, there's also a paragraph on heating and cooling planning, so which aims to at least encourage regional and local authorities to prepare local heating and cooling plans, at least in municipalities with higher population numbers, so greater than 50,000. You can check our website for further insights. So what we did, we had, for example, a very extensive survey on heating and planning success factors. So there's a report and some others. So just check it out. And right now I'm going to sketch you very briefly how the systematic or architecture of our Act on Heat project works. So basically, we have two support facilities. One is more dedicated to, I would say, very detailed project studies with reference to pipeline-based solutions. So district heating, for example, which is support facility 2, and then we have the support facility 1, which is more aimed at basic consultancy with regard to strategic heating and cooling planning. So what we have in our Act on Heat project is we have periodically calls. So municipalities can apply there or register, give also note what are their needs. And then afterwards, we have some kind of ramp-up calls with them. And we define a collaboration agreement, so which services we are going to deliver. And we help them then to at least start or improve heating and cooling planning and document it. And for the case studies, we create a report together with them. So it's very important to note here that municipalities has also to provide capacities on their own in order to participate in the project. So what we use or what we can offer support for, so we have two institutes very experienced in applying tools for heating and cooling planning. So Thermos on the one side is very good to analyze potentials for district heating. It's on the left side. It's also open source. You can check it on the website. On the right side, you see hot maps with various functionalities related more to general heating and cooling planning. Also open source. You can also check it on the website. I brought 3 slides for you, more kind of like for you to check in the afterwards what's going on right now. So 3 case studies. For example, we are in touch right now with the Energy Agency in Hessen in Germany. So this is a federal state where a law on municipal heating and cooling planning is coming up. So what we did there together with them is to support training webinars, but what we are also doing right now is to prepare like best practice slide decks for them, which they can use in their daily work. Then we have the case of Celsate. It's a very interesting case where a steelworks company is located. They have excess heat, and yeah, we support it in, let's say, analyzing the business case on using this excess heat with district heating. And here, for example, we have a case which is more like general. So it's for the Macedonian Academy of Science and Arts. So they want to use the Hot Maps toolbox for Macedonia. But first of all, further data needs to be set up in order also to use the toolbox for this country. Okay, and then I'm at the end of my presentation. Yeah, I'm happy to discuss with you afterwards. And yeah, I would give over the stick to Julien.
Hello. Before Yulin comes in, my name is George. I work with Yulin. I'll be introducing our next speaker. So Andrea Voigt has been since 2001 head of global public affairs and a member of the strategy and sustainability leadership team at Danfoss, which we all know as a global technology leader in this field. Before that, she was in the Brussels-based European Partnership for Energy and Environment for 12 years, which is a major industry association advocating for sustainable heating and cooling in buildings and industry. She's also board member of several associations and alliances like the UN Cool Coalition, Global Alliance for Buildings and Construction, European Heat Pump Association, and she holds a degree in public administration. Before I hand it over, I realized also, thank you, Ali. I just forgot to say thank you to you for your presentation. But with that said, then I'll hand it over to Andrea.
Thank you very much, George, for the introduction. Just to correct, I've been with Danfoss since 2021, not since 2001. So it's relatively recent still. So I'll try to share my screen, and I hope it works. And I'll put it on presentation mode. And again, I hope it works. Does it?
Yes, all good.
Okay. Okay. So just so first of all, thanks again for inviting us. It's a super opportunity to engage a bit further with municipalities as well and share our insights from practical experience in terms of district energy and also sector integration. Danfoss Group is a global leader in energy efficiency technologies. I won't go into the detail here, just to show that we have these three major segments. I'm part of the Danfoss Climate Solutions, and that is also where the district energy business unit is represented. Danfoss in itself, we try to lead by example, or we lead by example. Our own operations shall be carbon neutral by 2030. And I'll say a few more words later on in the presentation about our headquarters campus in Norborg, which is carbon neutral since last year. I don't think I need to emphasize this in this forum. I just thought I copy in this important statement from the latest IPCC report, which makes it once again very clear that we really need to act in order to achieve the 1.5 degrees target. If we look at global policy trends, we see a clearly action there, and also I would say encouraging action in the sense that we have over 130 countries who have already made commitments to carbon neutrality, and also if we look at the refrigerants to transition to low global warming potential refrigerants, we have targets on renewables, on minimum energy performance standards, and so on. So there is clearly movement, but it's also clear that more needs to be done. And it's also very clear that heating and cooling plays a very important role. Previous speakers have already shown statistics in that respect, so I'll be very brief here. Just to remind all of us that the European Union has made this commitment to halve the greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, or even by reduce them by 55%, and to be carbon neutral by 2050. It's enshrined in law, so it's not just a commit. It's not just an announcement. It's really a legally binding commitment. And we see that heating and cooling plays such an important role because it represents half of the total final energy consumption in Europe. And most of that, if we look here at the worldwide figures, is based on fossil fuels still, and that's also the case in Europe. We also know that in Europe there are quite a lot of developments already in terms of decarbonizing heating and cooling. We do have a phase down of fossil fuels in district heating. Right now, the Energy Efficiency Directive is being negotiated, and we very much hope that this will add a further push towards decarbonizing district heating. We have several European countries that have already banned fossil fuel boilers, or that plan to ban fossil fuel boilers, at least in new build. So there's also a clear push. Carbon pricing was just mentioned, and also then several countries who have already mandatory heat maps. Again, the Energy Efficiency Directive at European level will hopefully also give here another push that heat maps become really the norm or the standard throughout Europe, because without mapping the heating demand and the heating supply, it's difficult to make best use of all the sources that we have. And that's indeed for us very important to state here, that the entire system needs to be optimized. So we can't just look at a source or at a building or at the district energy grid in itself. It's the together that really plays a very important role, where we really need to make sure that on the one hand side, we decarbonize the energy sources, that on the other hand side, the distribution is efficient. And then that, of course, where it arrives then in the building or in the industry or wherever the energy is then being used at application level, that there also we have efficiency. So energy efficiency needs to be embedded throughout the entire system as we are decarbonizing the energy. From our perspective as Danfoss Climate Solution, the integration of the energy sources and the sectors is therefore really a key priority. It's about moving out of the silos and connecting the heat sources and the various heat sources with the heat demand. And in order to make this as efficient as possible, there are those 3 steps that, from our perspective, really play a key role. It's on the one hand side, and first and foremost, to reduce the energy use and to optimize the energy use, whether that's in industry or in buildings. It's to reuse the energy, make use of all the heat sources that we have, including also the waste heat that we have, or the excess heat, if you like. And that excess heat can come from many different applications, such as process cooling, such as data centers, such as supermarkets, cooling in supermarkets, for example, etc. So there is a huge untapped potential, which can very well linked to district energy and fed into either bigger district energy networks or microgrids. And then, of course, sourcing green energy when it comes to district heating to decarbonize the energy sources wherever and as quickly as possible. Then there is a lot that can also be done in terms of digitalization, in terms of optimizing right from the start at the district heating utility level, via the distribution level through to the buildings level. So really optimize how the systems and the installations work, make sure that pumps, for example, just match the demand, the work of the pumps, that we don't have an overcapacity, that everything is correctly sized, and also that outside factors like, for example, the weather conditions are being taken into account when calibrating the heat supply. So there are solutions out there that allow this end-to-end optimization. Danfoss is one of the providers of such solutions, also connecting it to our hardware. Then looking at this specific case of what I was saying earlier in terms of using the excess heat, here an example of what we mean or where this can be applied as a priority. If we look at, for example, critical facility cooling, so meaning that there are applications and facilities that need cooling, and whenever you have cooling, you will also have excess heat, and that excess heat can then be recovered. That's a very interesting model, because, as I was saying earlier, otherwise we waste that heat that could be used. So if I'm just putting, yeah, so if I'm looking at this a bit more in detail, we can actually combine very well the different applications. We can have in such critical cooling facilities, we can on the one hand side require cooling, on the other hand side we can require heating. If we combine the two of them together, then we can very much increase the efficiency from a total efficiency perspective, or total efficiency ratio as we call it here. As you can see on this example, if we have just only separately the cooling, then the coefficient of performance would be here in this example 5.7. If we only just look at the heating, it would be 5.3. But if we combine the two of them together, and on the one hand side cool, on the other hand side heat with a heat pump, then we can increase the efficiency quite significantly. If we look at our own experience from what is being used, we have over 140 projects running where we use these excess heat sources and combine the heating and the cooling as well. As you can see on the numbers here, without going into bigger detail, the process and wastewater and district and data center cooling availability of excess heat is consistent and stable, and where the temperature is also interesting. Data centers are a very good example for that, because the excess heat is constantly available, so it can be constantly used. And a practical example here from our Norborg campus, I was mentioning that in the beginning of the presentation, it's since 2022 carbon neutral. How did we do that? We first of all optimized the energy use by reducing as much as possible the energy use by using solutions such as, for example, regulating the temperature, hydronic balancing. Very not rocket science, but solutions that really help to reduce energy use. Then, of course, there is also the important part of switching the electricity to green electricity, which has been the case since February 2021, using wind energy in the case for our campus, and then decarbonizing the heating, which is a mix of different measures, where we have on the one hand side the recovery of the heat from from the cooling of our processes, where we also recover the heat from our Danfoss data center, and the rest of the heat is then sourced from district energy, which is also green district energy, decarbonized district energy. And bringing all of this together then allowed to decarbonize the entire campus. This is the overall picture of this decarbonization. It's showing how we combine those different excess heat sources and opportunities that we have at the location of our Norborg campus. It's the data center I was saying. It's also connected with a supermarket and the excess heat there, power to X, and then also compressed air. We have this heat exchange station in the middle, where we can then recover the heat and then feed it into the district heating plant to heat then the village of Norborg and our own headquarters. So that's a very brief overview. Happy to answer questions as well. And yeah, I'm trying to stop sharing.
Yeah, it worked.
Okay, good. So happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Very interesting. Thank you for giving us this overview of how we need to optimize the integrated system and giving us the technology perspective, let's say. And I would like now to have the municipal perspective on this issue of the heating planning and energy crisis. So that's why I would like to welcome Istok Mori. He's the head of the municipality of Velenje in Slovenia. He's also the president of the supervisory board of the development agency of Savinska region. He's working on the challenges and opportunities for coal regions in transition. And as a fun fact, he's a sports lover and therefore is also a member of the management board of the handball team in handball club in Velenje. So please, Istok, the floor is yours. And I would let you now share the screen for your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Julian. Hello to everyone. I hope that you see on my screen.
Let's see.
Is it now?
We see your presentation now. If you can make it full screen.
Okay.
Oh, now it's gone. Sorry. Can you open it again? Okay. Yes, perfect. We see it now perfectly. So,
It's now okay.
no, sorry, now it's closed again. Yes, we are not seeing it in presentation mode, but okay, yes, now, yeah, there. Perfect.
Okay, okay. If it's okay, I can start now.
Yes,
So
thank you.
You can see it.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
It's clear.
Thank you very much, and hello again from my city, from Velenje, from Slovenia. For the start, I would like to show you or tell you some challenges of our city, so you can, in some way, see what are our goals, our challenges, and where in that challenges are also our transformation of our district heating. So in the next 7-8 years, it's very important for our city that we build new highway, that we established 5,000 new jobs, because the coal mine in our city will be shut down in 2033. It's also very important to build some new apartments for our city, so the young people will stay in Velenje. Because the coal mine will be shut down in 2033, it's also very important transformation of the district heating system, because the district heating system now is all on the coal. And of course, for our future are also very important two acts. One of them is the act of the Velenje coal mine closure, and the other is act on the restructuring of Savinska region. And for the end, energy efficiency of buildings and our energy office Velenje. And we will talk about that a little bit later. Also, we are very proud that we are on the mission to become a climate neutral city and smart cities by 2030. And also that we won some award that we will be in 2024 the green capital of the small cities of the European Union. We are very proud of that, but also we are also know and we are that is a great responsibility and actually very hard work for us in the next decade. The price of the district heating system, or the heat in the now, is very expensive everywhere in Europe, and I believe also everywhere in the world. And the CO2 coupons coupons make heating very expensive even more. So that means that CO2 coupons are now over the 50% of the price of the heat in our city. Of course, for our citizens, municipality covers the difference to mitigate the effects of the price increases. But I think that will change that in the future, because now we cover the difference for all our citizens. But I think for the next months on, we change that we will cover just the ones which are the most vulnerable in our city. And like I said before, for now, we are 100% dependent on a coal for our heat system. Here you can see what are our action plans for the future in the next 8 years. Transformation of the district heating system, it's now we have 3 phases. And the first one is renewal and digitalization of the district heating distribution network. We have in our district pipes losses around 25–27%. And this is something we will have to do for the start. And also, we have to update the construction of the new thermal stations. And that's because if you want to go to the green source, we have to lower the temperature regime and operation from the current 120% to around 85 degrees Celsius. In the second phase, we have to establish some new units. And the first is very important that it will be the different sources. I think this is something we know already. And the first what we will build the new solar thermal power plant for the summer regime for the whole district system. Our district system is the second largest district heating system in Slovenia and is the oldest one. And the heat was so cheap in our region and in our city that we actually built this district heating system to every village which we have in our valley. And the phase 2, we would like to implement some heating pumps on our lakes, because we have 2 or 3 lakes here in our valley. And also, we want to build some biomass power plant. So this picture down here, you can see that we will go from current stage where we used to say that 2G, which is all on the coal, that we want to be in the future, the totally green sources for our district heating, and our goal is to achieve that by 2030. Our solutions: loss reduction, also in the buildings and for our citizens, subsidies to the citizens for the most vulnerable, and energy office Velenje, and that is something very important for us or important for our people, because renovation of all the buildings in the city is also very crucial if you want to go to the green source. Because we have now just about 10% of all buildings which are renovating, and they're suitable if we can apply them to the green source. So just for the end, new solutions will be the most optimal in terms of technology, price, and stability. This is our goal for our great challenge. Because in our city, the mission to become climate neutral and smart city by 2030, and also to make just transition by 2030 is something which will go on hand by hand, or are actually the same goal. Because we cannot make just transition of our city and the coal mine will be shut down. Otherwise, that we become a climate and neutral city by 2030. Thank you very much.
Hvala istok. So now that we have had our 3 presentations, we'd like to open it up to everybody to ask their questions. I think that the most effective way is to put it into the chat. But if you feel that you wish to do so, then you can also raise your hand. But I will maybe start things off. I see that in the chat, some have already asked questions to Andrea, but she's already answered in the chat. But I will then ask a question first to Ali as the first presenter. So we've been talking about no regrets. The energy crisis is in the background, as you mentioned, the elephant in the room. And then you focused a lot on heat planning, which I think is a rather long-term approach. But what kind of recommendations might you have for doing heat planning in a way that's resilient, that can minimize regrets in the system, that's adaptive?
Yeah, very good question, very complex question, because I mean, you never know what happens in future. Yeah, just have a look on the gas crisis. So first of all, your first comment, yeah, heat planning is kind of a long, but I wouldn't say only a long, it's also a midterm approach. Yeah, so it also helps you to achieve 2030 goals, which is for me midterm. It depends always on perspective. And for sure, you in heat planning, you have short-term measures, which is like, I mean, for example, if you make a first study like here in Germany, so the municipalities, they have to draft it, I think, in 2 or 3 years. Yeah, so yeah, it's not very quick, but after within this first plan, they also need to describe how they are engaging the stakeholders, also citizens. So you have some kind of short-term measures as well within the engagement part. And resilient, yeah, it depends in which direction you are thinking. So what do you think? Resilient with regard to prices or greenhouse gas mitigations? Actually, the problem here right now is maybe that a very or topic where you have high tension is, for example, the use of biomass, yeah, or biogas or something. So I can, or even more hydrogen, yeah. For example, I could very easy prepare a transformation pathway in order just to skip, to switch from natural gas to some kind of synthetic hydrogen, synthetic natural gas produced from hydrogen, but maybe we will have bottlenecks there. So in order to be resilient, what's important from my point of view is that the national and regional authorities give guidelines to the municipalities, yeah? Also with regard which energy carrier we think are available in future, yeah? To not leave too much space, yeah, for developing the plan, yeah? In order to have some consistency also between municipalities, yeah? But how you develop these guidelines is also an open question, because you could really prescribe by law, yeah, some boundaries. But honestly, as far as I've seen the first drafts of the laws in the federal states for Germany, or in Baden-Württemberg, we already have it. It's not really prescribing it. Yeah, it's like, okay, the law is very wide, and then you have the guidelines, and it's good practice to use the guidelines. But yeah, I'm not sure what happens if I don't use it. So yeah.
So
maybe
the difference between regulations and recommendations.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think really, so my recommendation would be really not to leave the municipalities too alone, to really to back them up, yeah, with guidelines, yeah. So you give them help, but then you also demand something in return for it, yeah. For example, skipping to the guidelines. Sure. Oh, not skipping, yeah, using the guidelines. Okay, sorry.
Of course.
Yeah.
So
I have a, okay, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Karsten Sokert. I'm a business development manager for Burmeister and Wain Energy, a Danish company who designs and supplies biomass-based power, combined heat and power plants based on agricultural biomass waste and forest biomass residues of various kinds. We have a long history and many references on this. And first of all, thank you very much for the presentations. They've all been very, very informative and interesting to listen to. I would like to make a few points to begin with. Andrea, you had a very nice presentation, also illustrating the need for synergies and integrations. You gave a beautiful example for Danfoss headquarters themselves, how you have synthesized the need for cooling and heating and created a circular energy economy within your own facility, which of course is beautiful, and I believe that it can be replicated many places. What I'm missing here in the overall picture is how much this combined cooling, heating, synergetic effect can actually contribute to the overall need. We are talking about cities with 50,000, 100,000, 500,000, millions of people. We have needs of heating in the scale of 20, 30, 40 gigawatt we are talking about that scale of energy demand. And I doubt that I don't have anything really to back it up, but I doubt that this synergetic effect will be a huge contributor to this overall demand. But I'm a big supporter of it. That's not what I'm saying. I think it's a beautiful example. I really, really like it, and do not take this as I'm not a supporter of that. I totally is. But I think there are some sizes of order that we need to address. First of all, Germany hardly have a supply distribution system. I mean, we can talk about all the needs and the sources and so on, but we are not getting it out to the consumers. So I think that could be maybe a topic for the next session or the next meeting. And I also believe some of your systems that you wanted, software you wanted to introduce here is actually targeted that particular point. And then I think, I mean, you Andrea talk about the synergetic between cooling and heating, and I would reverse that. If we look at all our central power plants in Germany, who has a capacity of 40, 45 gigawatt electrical, most of these plants are pure electrical plants. The heat, or the waste heat from these plants are of a size of order that could heat the entire Germany. All the waste heat in Europe could heat the entire of Europe. We have all the heat in the world to heat our countries and the European Union in total with the waste heat that we have today. Now, the focus for some reason has been on supplying Germany with natural gas from Russia, boosting the German economy by letting German companies produce steel pipes for transporting the natural gas to Germany, rather than actually focusing on what we already have in our house. We already have plenty of waste heat. We have steel industries that can produce district heating pipes instead of natural gas pipes. We just need to focus on this.
If I can cut you off there to get to a question from this, I think I'll play off of what you were saying.
Yeah. So basically, I could thank you for cutting me off. Yeah, what I really is missing here is maybe some sizes of order. How much heat is actually available for us? What is the challenge ahead of us in order to be able to harvest this heat and distribute it into the society? And what other local resources? I'm thinking very much, it's pretty much aligned with Andrea's presentation. What do we already have? We have a lot of cooling needs. What do we have that we can always harvest? What biomass or renewable sources do we already have? We made an article a while ago on Europe's untapped biomass resource, focusing very much on straw as a agricultural biomass waste, being able to cover 10% of Germany's electrical consumption and at the same size of order of their heat demand, which is right there by our feet, just asking to be used. We have all the waste heat from the central power plants asking to be used, and nobody is looking at it and nobody is using it.
Okay.
So
Andrea, I'm kind of
I can just maybe
okay.
just briefly react, very briefly react to what Carsten was saying. I think the decarbonization of heat is a massive task, and we need everything for that. I mean, we need heat pumps, we need all sorts of waste heat, we need all sorts of renewable heat. Everything we can get is basically needed. What I was showing in the presentation was just a snapshot of one way on how we can use synergies, and by using those synergies reduce the need to produce specifically heat. So if we have cooling, then and if we do that cooling in an energy efficient way with a heat pump, then we can use those this symbiotic effect that I was describing in order to cool and then use the excess heat, pump it up, and use it for heating as well. But it's just a snapshot of what can be done. That does not exclude that we shouldn't use any other excess heat that is available. We should just use everything that we have in order to decarbonize. So, and also reacting, it's a little bit reacting to you, Carsten, and also to a question in the chat. The unfortunate thing is that it doesn't really happen systematically. It's still very sporadic what is happening. And even if we had cases where the heat source was there, the excess heat source was there, the need for cooling was there, the district energy network was there, everything was there, and it still didn't happen. Why didn't it happen? Because of a lack of awareness, no incentives, administration, taxes, whatever. There are still a lot of framework conditions that need to be improved in order to make this happening more systematically. And yeah, as I said, it's a snapshot. We need everything in order to decarbonize heat. And planning is, I think, the basis for everything. If we don't plan where the heat is available, where the heat is needed, and how we can generate the heat, then it's simply not going to happen. The heat plan is where it all starts, which is why I find this initiative and this project so very interesting and important as well.
Thank you for that, Andrea. Henrik, thank you for raising your hand. You can have the floor.
Thanks very much. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for the presentations and all the comments, and happy to be among you because I'm really, I think Julian says, or I don't know, Ali, you maybe said it, it's such a great topic, and it's good to be in this topic in these times, although the times are not so good, but the topic is so great. But Andrea, what you said, I just, want to emphasize that as well, to do the planning. And I think it's a good time to do the planning because we've got all the data available. The EU just recently made an initiative to get more data availability running. So GIS planning is something that's not said today, but I think we were talking about that. So GIS data is available. Calculation capacity is available, data is available all over the place, and I think we should enable not only municipalities but engineering companies as well to get into fast planning. And I think, and what we are doing since years now, is to have a look at Denmark, obviously, because there's like 40 years of experience with heat planning from our municipality. And I know that there are lots of heat networks all over Europe, but the common ground from the nowadays times in 1979, when Denmark established the planning, is kind of the energy crisis. So it's not like the networks that were built up because we've got excess heat from, I don't know, coal-fired plants or whatever, but it was an energy crisis causing the Danish society to choose for energy planning. And there are lots of, obviously there were, I call them mistakes, but it was like, there were no mistakes, but from time to time, these networks were improved, the planning was improved. So in my mind, it's a good thing to have a look at the actual state of planning and doing in Denmark. And this is only what I want to emphasize and what we are doing in our region, in our research, just to get it running fast. And all the things you said about resources we have to use them all. And we have to do it kind of locally, because you don't know if there's biomass available, if there's a heat pump source available, excess heat, whatever. So we have to do it locally, but we have to get some ideas, and we have to get some measures, like the rule of thumbs are very important, because we can't know it all very exactly. But today, when you build a new area, whatever, the electricity grid isn't built exactly for the need, but it's a rule of thumb you kind of engage. And this is what we need for heat planning, I guess. And yeah, and it's lots of green floor planning in Germany, in the rest of Europe. We're working in the Netherlands a lot, and you know that they're struggling as well. And yeah, so I only wanted to emphasize all you said and join the discussion with that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Henrik. So I think that also we can take what you were talking about, the local resources, I think is also really important, also within an energy crisis, because it makes each district heating system more autonomous, less fluctuating, more stable. So I would maybe ask Istok as well, because you had this system that was 100% coal, and now you're aiming for switching to green energy. Will all of that be local? You mentioned your lakes and doing that with heat pumps. I know you have these mines which will be closed. Are you contemplating using the mine shafts as a heat source once you flood them with water? What kind of things are you doing? And are you exploring excess heat? What is your experience as a municipality in terms of expediting some of these measures to actually be implemented?
Yes, thank you for the question, George. Yes, right now, coal is from our coal mine here in Velenje. So we're hoping that our next source energy will be also from the region. Well, the sun is all over the world, and the sun for the 6 months in the summer and the spring and autumn, I think that will be enough heat source for our city. Maybe also we will save some hot energy from the sun for maybe for October. We are actually about that is a big discussion also with my colleagues here in municipality. And of course, heat pumps, I think that lake can be some source of the energy also, but you need some prime source to get some electricity from somewhere to move on the heat pumps. And biomass is what we have in Slovenia quite a lot, but if all the cities want to go to the biomass, I think it is not enough. So some main solution for the whole Slovenia, for the whole Europe, I think that will be a very, very great challenge for all of us. And actually, the biggest challenge is which source of energy or which technology will be also green in 10 years from now. Because, you know, in some way, the gas was also kind of green just a couple of years ago. It is okay, but that things also change. Also, we want to know if the biomass will be green still in 10 years from now. Because it's also some kind of discussions are going on here about that. So I think that municipalities all over Europe are actually now in some way to decide in which way they want to go. But it's not the same answer for all the municipalities. I think that they must look locally, also maybe some geothermal or other sources, and to find the best solutions for every city each. But it's not the same for every city. I think that that is the key challenge for every mayor in Europe to find the right answer to that.
Okay, thank you very much, Istok. Thank you to all of you for the lively discussion. So we reached our time. So just to close, I would like to mention some next steps. So as you already might know, for this Acton Heat training, we will have a second session happening on the 1st of March, focusing on creating technical zones and scenarios for heating planning with the online tools that Ali mentioned, Thermos and Hot Maps. Then I would like to also mention you the ICLEI Strategic Heating and Cooling Support Package that is being rolling out, and they are preparing a session on energy community-driven heating and cooling projects on the 28th of February. So if you are interested in that, please don't hesitate to register. My colleague Jen posted the link for this in the chat, I believe. And then, as said, you have further material on the Acton Heat website, actonheat.eu, where you can find also the recording and presentations for the previous training that we did last year. So having said that, I would like to thank you all for being here. Thank you to our speakers, and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a
Yeah,
nice day.
Istak, I just wrote a message to you. Can you?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay.